Hello and kairete. Welcome to the first installment in this series, where I'll be presenting some ancient Greek texts in the original language, mostly focusing on works of philosophy and history and what we can learn from them. In this first video, we'll be taking a look at the fragments of Heraclitus. This will probably be mostly of interest for those who already have some knowledge of ancient Greek, or at least an interest in it. The information might still be of interest to philosophy or history enthusiasts in general, but the in-depth linguistic analysis might get a bit tedious at points. With that in mind, here's the beginning of the text. Tu de logu tu deontos ai axunetoi ginon tai anthropoi, kai proste ne accusai kai accusantes to proton. Ginomenon garpanton kataton logonton de apeiroi sine oikasi, peiromenoi kai apeon kai ergon toiuton, hokoion ego diegeumai, kata pysin diaireon hekaston, kai prason hokos eke. Tuste allus anthropus lantane hokos egertentes poiusin, hokos per hokos eudontes epilantanontai. Though this word is true evermore, yet men are as unable to understand it when they hear it for the first time as before they've heard it at all. For though all things come to pass in accordance with this word, men seem as if they had no experience of them when they make trial of words and deeds such as I set forth, dividing each thing according to its kind and showing how it truly is. But other men know not what they are doing when awake, even as they forget what they do in sleep. This is said to be the introduction to the only philosophical work written by the pre-Socratic philosopher Heraclitus of Ephesus, called On Nature. This excerpt was quoted by the Roman-era philosopher Sextus Empiricus in his work Against the Mathematicians. The original text must have survived, at least in rare handwritten copies, throughout the classical period and perhaps into the Middle Ages, as his witty and often cryptic aphorisms are cited by various other scholars throughout history, including Aristotle, the Christian church fathers, and even various medieval monks from France to the Byzantine Empire. Perhaps the original manuscripts were burned in the Library of Alexandria or destroyed through some other means. Regardless, the full original text has been lost to history, and only the fragments quoted from these other sources survive as records of Heraclitus's thought. His biographers remember him as a solitary personality, with misanthropic and perhaps melancholic tendencies. He was critical of the prevailing religious and social norms of his time, and was called an abuser of the mob, a despiser of the masses. His work influenced later thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche, who considered him to be the Western tradition's equivalent to Lao Tzu. Heraclitus described the organizing principle of the cosmos as an incomprehensible force of chaos, a union composed of two opposing poles, always in conflict. The affinity between this view and Lao Tzu's view on the Tao or Taiji, with its opposing principles of yin and yang, is quite apparent. But rather than Tao or path, Heraclitus refers to this divine unifying principle of the cosmos as logos, or the word. This is the origin of the use of the word to refer to the divine in the Western tradition, which was influential across many different traditions from the Stoics to the early Christians. The Christian scriptures refer to the person of Christ as the Word or Logos made flesh. Famously in John chapter 1 verse 1, in the beginning was the Word or Logos, for example. This connection was not unnoticed by some early Christian theologians, notably Saint Clement of Alexandria and Justin Martyr, who considered both Socrates and Heraclitus to be righteous pagans, or pre-Christian wise men whose philosophies they believed anticipated the teachings of Christ in some ways, and thereby prepared the pagan Gentiles to eventually receive them. Heraclitus was born around the 6th century BC in Ionia and wrote in an archaic form of the Ionian dialect, so in terms of antiquity about halfway between Homer's Greek, used in the Iliad and the Odyssey, and the later Attic variant of the Ionian dialect used in 4th century Athens by authors like Aristotle and Plato. The city-state of Ephesus was actually under the dominion of the Persian Empire during his life, so many, including Nietzsche famously, have discussed possible early Zoroastrian influences on his thought. So with all that in mind, the rest of what follows here is a more in-depth analysis of the opening fragment. Here's a gloss or literal translation we can go through word by word. Tu delogu tu deontosai aksunetoi ginontai. But of this word being always ununderstanding, they become. Aksunetoi is, the a there is an alpha privative, so basically meaning un or without, a negative essentially. So without understanding, they become anthropoi, men, kai prostene acusai, both before and after having heard, kai acusantes to proton, and hearing for the first time. Ginomenon garpanton kataton logontonde, becoming all for all according to this word, apeiroisin eoikasi, they seem unexperienced or without experience. Pe romenoi kai epeion kai ergon, trying in word and in deed. Epeion here comes from the root word epos, which literally just means word, usually in the context of poetry. It's an irregular neuter declension. It's also often contrasted with ergon, as it is here, in a fixed expression, so kind of like the equivalent of the English expression in word and in deed. It's also useful in this context to contrast with logos, logos referring to the philosophical concept, and epos here just referring to literal words. So kai epeion kai ergon toiuton, of such things, hokoionego diageomai, of such things as I explain, kata pysin diaireon hekaston, according to nature, dividing each thing, kai prason hokoseke, and declaring as it has, or telling it like it is, essentially. Tuste allus anthropus lantane, but other men, it escapes their notice. Hokosa egertentes poius in hokos per hokosa eudontes epilantanontai. As much as awakening they do, just as much as when they're asleep they forget. So having finished this first introductory paragraph, we can note another parallel between Heraclitus and Lao Tzu here. In the introduction, Heraclitus is essentially lamenting the futility or impossibility even of understanding the true nature of the cosmos. Lao Tzu's introduction to the Tao Te Ching begins dealing with similar themes. Dao ke dao fei chang dao, ming ke ming fei chang ming. The path that can be trodden is not the enduring and unchanging path. The name that can be named is not the enduring and unchanging name. So this was rather short, but I'll wrap up the first video here. This was intended to be a brief introduction to the work of Heraclitus, hopefully the first of a series analyzing and reading through ancient Greek texts in the original language. In the next video, we'll continue reading through the fragments and perhaps seeing what philosophical and linguistic insights we can derive therefrom. I hope you found this information useful and interesting. If so, I would appreciate a like and subscribe for more ancient texts. If you have any ideas or suggestions for future videos, please feel free to leave a comment below as well. Eucharisto kai araste.